and there we go. Get rid of the banner. There we go. All right.
We're off to a great start.
Yeah.
One of those nights. Hi, everybody, and welcome to our next episode of Where's My Sage? A Taste of the Universe. This is Kristie London, and I am a psychic medium and Reiki master, and my co-host, #just Mike.
Yeah. Hi, guys.
Mike was almost eaten by a bear.
Yeah. One of those days today.
Oh, boy.
So, welcome everybody. It's been a crazy week with this COVID thing. We want to send some prayers out to everybody. Those that are working in public service in the hospitals and fire and military and police and the small restaurants that need the support right now. We'd like to thank everybody. For those that are home, please enjoy what we have. We're going to go live here with Mr. Seth Breedlove from Small Town Monsters in a minute.
Yeah, I'm very excited to have him. We have a lot of questions for this guy.
Yeah.
He has his hand in many pots.
Yes. So,
how's everybody doing?
Yeah, go ahead. So
you're talking too much already. For having somebody who's struggling to get through his day, you just need to breathe. No, I'm teasing you. You're doing great. No. So how is everybody? How was your day? You want to talk about your day? Do you need to kind of just let go and?
It's just one of those days. So,
boring.
But yeah, the Florida thing we'll bring up a little bit. But we got Seth's actually here now, so we're gonna bring Seth on. So let me click over here and bring in Seth in. Hello, Seth. How are you tonight?
Good. How are you guys?
Good. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yes.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
So,
that's my wife back there.
I was just gonna say, am I seeing things or am I really seeing things?
Yeah. No, that's a ghost.
Hi, Mr. Seth. That's funny.
So before I completely forget, the Reaps, Bill and Chris wanted us to say hello to you.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that was one of my favorite trips last year. I spent one night. I drove all the way to Baltimore, spent one night in a hotel, and then came back. And but we had a lot of fun. We did a screening of Brave Road Beast with them, and they were super engaged. The Q&A went an hour after the screening, even though there was only 20 people there, but we had so much fun.
That's awesome.
But yeah, that hotel, we stayed at the Lord Baltimore. Have you guys ever been there?
No.
Have not.
Awesome. Super cool hotel in Baltimore. So highly recommend that once all this COVID stuff dies down.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. Wait until that.
Cool. Yeah, they're a lot of fun too. So I can imagine. I'm surprised it only went an hour. I was on their show last night, and we could have easily gone for a couple of hours, and that's when the second time we met them at Rochester Parafest. I had never met them before, and they were something. We hit it off like that, it was hysterical, laughing, a lot of good times. And they're just fun. They're just easy to get along with, and they just go with the flow, which is even better, But they're very open-minded and just very easy to have a conversation with. So I can only imagine.
Yep. Yeah. It was a fun trip.
Good. Yeah. So they send their love for sure.
So I haven't seen you since the summer, since Pennsylvania and Eric's event there. I see you've been pretty busy. So we have a large, diverse group of individuals from around the globe. And can everybody hear me okay tonight? I hope. So wondering if you could explain a little bit about Small Town Monsters and kind of give us a little background on your production team and what you guys do.
Yeah. So Small Town Monsters is a independent production company / film series. The Small Town Monsters began in 2015 with our 55-minute documentary called Minerva Monster, and we make documentaries based around the United States that focus on 14 topics, I guess is what you'd say. So paranormal stuff, like Bigfoot, UFOs, dogmen, all stops in between. It's kind of what we do at this point. We've made, we're working on our 10th feature film, and we've made 3 series, and we actually just released the latest series like an hour ago. We put it up a little early. It was supposed to go live on Friday, but we were because of everyone being locked inside, and we had so many people reaching out to us asking us if we could post the series, we just went ahead and posted the series. So On the Trail of UFOs went live at around 7:00. We posted it. So and that's probably the most ambitious thing we've done, and it's weird because it's almost a year or almost 5 years exactly since we released Minerva Monster, and On the Trail of UFOs is sort of I wouldn't call it the opposite. I think the opposite of Minerva Monster is actually Momo, the Momo movie we did. But On the Trail of UFOs is as far from Minerva as you can get, because it's covering 14 different states, 30 interviews, coast to coast, and it's got any. I'd say there's 8 episodes. It's clocking in over 4.5 hours long. One episode alone has over 60 effect shots, so it's loaded with stuff. So I'm really hoping people respond to that series.
Wow.
It's also the most expensive thing we've done by a landslide.
That's a good thing, though, right? It means you're moving up, right?
Yeah, well,
That's amazing.
we'll know about that soon enough, but for now.
I think that's really awesome, though, because you know what? You listened to what people wanted and were hoping for, and with all the craziness going on, you know what? If you can, put it out there and help people find a little bit of joy and chill out and relax a little bit, and they want to see what you have to offer, I think that's amazing. It's a huge compliment to you. Yeah.
I'm excited. We've been waiting for this for all year. I mean, we started filming last July was the first trip. We took a trip to Nevada, Arizona. Nevada and Arizona. we did. We filmed in we filmed in Las Vegas, Sedona, Phoenix, and then out at Area 51 in Rachel, Nevada. And so we've been waiting for around a year since we started shooting just to get this project out in front of people and see how they respond to it. And it's our follow up to On the Trail of Bigfoot, which is a very I don't know how to. On the Trail of Bigfoot was a very personal project, and this is a very personal project too. But it's Shannon LeGros's personal project, not Seth Breedlove's personal project. Okay. So it's just a different it's a different sort of approach, I guess, to On the Trail of the format than On the Trail of Bigfoot was. So we're really excited. I'm going to be glued to my phone and my social media for the next week. Not that I wasn't already with all this other
right. Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah.
We really appreciate you hitting us just before you released that. And actually, it was at a UFO meetup on Saturday night. And I told them, hey, you were releasing something new, and it jumped right on that. So they put that broadcast out around the Rochester area. And just a quick housekeeping note, folks. We're not going to be doing any readings right now. We have a special show planned for the 31st that Kristie will be doing readings all night. How did you get into the filmmaking there, Seth? And what got you going on this? And
yeah, I mean, that's a story in itself. I mean, I was doing newspaper reporting at the time, freelance newspaper reporting, and I had gained an interest in paranormal topics, and I kind of wanted to bring my own approach to it. I have a malfunction in my brain or something where I can't just enjoy things as a hobby. I have to somehow I have to involve myself in them. So I had some ideas on how I wanted to approach these subjects, and it was more from looking at it now. I mean, at the time I had no idea, but looking at it now, I think it was informed by what I was doing with newspapers, because in the newspaper reporting I was reporting for a small town newspaper. I was doing a lot of focus on independent businesses, small scale stories. And cool. I was interested in how something like a Bigfoot sighting or a UFO landing or whatever can impact the culture in a community where it takes place. And so I had put together this book proposal and sent it out to all these publishers. That was basically that. It was like a series of case files focused on rural monster legends and how they had impacted the areas geographically where they took place. And that book proposal was rejected. And at the same exact time, some friends of mine and I had started talking about doing a documentary project. And I decided to take one of the cases that we had focused on in that book proposal, which was Minerva Monster, and turn it into a movie. And so we just took the gear we had and we went out and we made Minerva Monster. And originally that was supposed to be a 25, 35 minute short that we were going to put on our YouTube channel. And of course that didn't happen because I had connections with all the local newspapers because I was freelancing for a lot of them. And I had used those connections to start getting press for our film. And because the press grew to the extent it did, we decided to release the film as like basically an independent short. And it gained a ton of press locally, and we used that to create this big premiere event that ended up drawing like 1,200 people. And then we took that money and then we flipped it into making another movie, which was Beast of Whitehall. And then that kind of got the ball rolling, and we just kept doing that. So, and now it's 5 years later, and we're still just doing that. So there's no I'm self-taught as far as like filmmaking goes, and I just I spend all my free time learning how to do this stuff. And I'm constantly trying to get better at it. And so, yeah, that's it. We didn't go to my director of photography went to film school. And some of the people who have worked on the cruise and who continue to work on the cruise occasionally, they're film school grads. But for the most part, I think we're all just like enthusiasts, like people who like film. And then there's a portion of the crew that are into the paranormal and stuff as well. But although the core group, which is myself, Zach and Jason, and then my wife, Adrian, I don't think I could call any of them like paranormal enthusiasts other than myself. They're into movies, and like, that's what their interest sort of is, like, how do we do this? Gotcha. So yeah, as far as like the filmmaking side of things goes, it's all just something where I threw myself into it and then learned as I went.
Wow, well, that's pretty cool. Does it blow your mind that things happen so quickly and that 5 years has already gone by? Because 5 years is a short amount of time, but it really isn't.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, it's
how hard we work to do the things we do.
Yeah, this feels like we've been doing this for 20 years or something. Because if you look at, we talk about this all the time. We don't really take time, especially me. I don't really take time to look at where we've been. Like I don't spend a lot of time reflecting on how the journey has been or any of that stuff. And it's not really by choice. It's just like the nature of what we do is so full steam ahead that there really haven't been many times. This is honestly, like, with what's going on right now, this is the first time where I'm like forced to be inside and like sitting around. So I haven't spent a lot of time like just reflecting on things. But if I do, it's insane. I mean, last year alone, you know, we filmed in probably 16, 17 different states. Between the three projects we released last year, there's probably close to 50, maybe 53 interviews we conducted. And that's in a single year. So wow. It's pretty crazy to see it grow from, and I guess that's the other thing, is watching it grow, where Minerva had an audience of, you know, we put it out on DVD. We didn't have any other way of putting it out. We eventually got it on Vimeo on demand, but there was no streaming. 5 years ago, there wasn't that wasn't a door we had open to us.
Right.
So we've gone from having an audience of, you know, maybe like 5,000-6,000 with Minerva Monster to where we are today, which is On the Trail of Bigfoot had over 6 million views. So
congratulations.
That's been pretty crazy to watch. Yeah.
Wow, that's insane.
Everybody says, you know, The Legend of Boggy Creek is their first Bigfoot movie. You know, I had to say the true Bigfoot movie besides Harry and the Hendersons was going to be Beast of Whitehall for me.
Really?
So yeah. So I stumbled across your stuff down at Chautauqua Lake, and it was the same year I met Steve and started doing my research with him. So your stuff, I was out sick for a little health issue a couple years back, and it's just like, I know when I'm having a bad day, I turn on Amazon Prime, and there's always a guarantee I'm grabbing one of your things that's on, be it, what's on Prime or what you got new release. I'm like, oh, let's see if it rains this week and I'm not stuck at work. It's going to be the Trail of UFO. And then you've got some other projects coming up that I'm looking forward to. And,
that's awesome.
And meeting some of the people that you've had, and, Jay and, from Beast of Bray Road, and, being out, and all the other people that you've interviewed, and Eric and those. So it's been a,
Beast of Whitehall is still my baby too. Like I hadn't because like that was the second project we made. But it was the first that I edited, and it was the first that I shot. And in all honesty, it was the first time I'd ever shot anything with interchangeable lenses, like where I had to pull focus and everything, because we shot Minerva with camcorders. So I had never, which if you watch Beast of Whitehall, it's pretty obvious I had no idea how to focus or any of those. Like,
well, but I wouldn't know any better. So when I watched some of those, I thought they were all really good. So
yeah, no, it's,
I didn't know any better.
Well, that's the thing. I rewatched it. I had to rewatch it a few weeks ago. I didn't have to, but I had to put it. There's some malfunction with my computer where if it idles for like 20 seconds, it shuts down. So I had to turn some sort of video on, because I was running exports on the Trail of UFOs. And while I was running exports, I had Beast of Whitehall playing, and I couldn't stop watching it because I hadn't watched it in probably 3 years. Put it on and watched it, and my wife was there, and I said to her, like, this isn't bad. Like, I don't hate this. There's some of our stuff I hate. Like, I can't. I pick it apart I pick it apart if I watch it. And Beast of Whitehall is still. I'll put it on. I'll be like, for like a guy who'd never shot anything, and for Brandon having never really scored anything other than Minerva, I still think it's a really solid STM project. I enjoy going back through it. It's kind of and the other thing about it that's weird. There's only that. This is the only movie where I really have this. I can watch it and cast myself back in time to where I was in every shot. Like every single shot, every B-roll shot, I remember what I was doing, who I was talking to, what I was saying, what I might have been thinking at the time. And I don't have that experience with any of our other stuff. Like maybe because it was more like, maybe it became more of a job on those other projects, or I was so focused on the mission. But with Beast of Whitehall, it's weird. It's like a time capsule for me.
Well, that area pulls you in, and just that was I did some stuff. I'm down in the Finger Lakes, so I'm like halfway between Chautauqua and up there. Yeah. And one night, Steve and I just got in the car and we just drove through Whitehall, and took me to each of the spots. It was cool watching what you had, and then there. But I don't know. I've been back. I don't know how many times now, and it's crazy.
I think I've told you before, I would buy a house on that road. Like if I could, or build a house on that road, on Abear Road. That's like, there's something about that town and that place that feels like home to me, even though I've probably only been there 4 or 5 times now. And, but if I just haven't had that kind of like connection to another place where we filmed really, even Minerva, and Minerva's, I essentially grew up there. But Whitehall, I got it when Tommy gets old enough. I really want to take him to to Abear Road at night and be like, hey, this is the story, tell him the scary story, and see if I can hook him into all this stuff.
Aww.
Yeah. So, well,
experiences.
I caught another podcast saying that you might be back up there filming again soon too. Yeah.
Oh, for sure. No, that's I mean, obviously everything's in flux now because of this dang virus, but the plan is that episode 2 or season 2 of on the Trail of Bigfoot will be British Columbia, Whitehall, New York, and then anything like I'll figure everything. I think I want to go to West Virginia, but everything else is kind of whatever. But for sure, I want to get to Whitehall, back to Whitehall, and into the Adirondacks in general. There was a night when we were filming the first time, which is a story in itself. Like Beast of Whitehall was filmed twice because there was a creative dispute between myself and someone who was supposed to produce it at the time. We got in a fight not halfway through after we had finished filming the movie. They trashed my movie and I went back and reshot the whole movie. So
you showed them.
Yeah. Well, I don't think anyone thought I'd be that insane. So but yeah,
Right.
we were driving around late at night outside Wells, New York, which I don't know if you know where that is, but it's like smack dab in the middle of the Adirondacks kind of. And we're on these crazy back roads up in those mountains. And actually some of the footage I shot that night is in the final movie. If you see like a dirt or gravel road and mountain, that's up there. But I want to go back to that area and camp like 2 or 3 nights because it's so isolated. It's pretty crazy. And that's the thing about the Adirondacks that's so different from the other locations we've been to is the Adirondacks are so isolated compared to, especially toward the central, like once you put yourself in the middle of them, you feel like you are completely alone in some of those places.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a member of NESRA and, and I do stuff with Steve. So I'm up in the Dax all the time. And some of the places we end up are just crazy. I mean, last week I was in Florida on 22,000 acres of forest craziness, but I know what you're saying. It's just the beauty that's up there. Even I'm telling you, I mean, you've been down to Chautauqua. That's just another place that we took Kristie on our first Bigfoot hunt down there, and it's with Ryan reading there. And it's a cool setup. So
yeah, Chautauqua's great.
Yeah. It's even cooler when, you get, stuck by yourself and everybody else just kind of takes off. They're like, she's okay by herself. No big deal. And I'm in the middle of this.
Things get fun.
I'm like, oh, okay, good thing. Bring on the ghosts. I can handle that. But anything big and furry, that's a little bit of a different story.
I'm the opposite. I'm the opposite of you.
So,
is anybody, guys, if you have any questions for Seth, please feel free to post them here. We'll be happy to ask Seth anything you want us to ask him.
And again, we're not doing any readings tonight. Where is the most picturesque place you've been with the crew?
Oh, Sedona. I would almost say it was like some of those Adirondack locales until we hit Sedona. But Sedona, we were there. We did the Airport Mesa. Well, first of all, our Airbnb was like up in the Red Rocks. I mean, we were in a location where I was spending as much time shooting B-roll off our balcony as I was doing it was crazy. I would just walk outside and shoot, and you could film all sorts of like gorgeous stuff. But we hiked the Airport Mesa Trail when we were filming On the Trail of UFOs last July, and that was supposedly like everyone kept telling us there's all these vortexes there. That's the place you hike if you want to see a UFO. So we started a hike on the Airport Mesa Trail just as like the sun was starting to dip. And by the time we hiked maybe 1.5 miles up the trail and couldn't find where we needed to go. And I was like, we're gonna be out here after dark, and I really don't want to be hiking this far out, after dark. So we made our way back, and by the time we got back, the sun was just starting to set. We all collapsed, and none of us had eaten. None of us took water. We didn't know we were going to be hiking 3 miles in like 112 degree heat. We all collapsed on these rocks on top of this mountain and then watched the sunset. And it's in the series, the sun setting. And that's like the most beautiful sunset I've ever seen in my life, because it's setting behind these mesas, and you're just, it looks like a John Wayne movie or something. And, so yeah, I think it's Sedona, and then I'd put Whitehall up there. I mean, Whitehall and the White Mountains. We got to go to the White Mountains. That was gorgeous. Those are some of them. I'm trying to like run through all the places we've shot. I mean, well, Mark Matsky and I took a trek out to Mount St. Helens and the Olympics last year or the year before when we were doing On the Trail of Bigfoot. That was unbelievable, and that's one of my favorite filming trips, and it definitely like Mount St. Helens was unbelievably gorgeous. We got there just as the sun was setting behind it, and shot an interview with Mark Marcel with like the sun setting behind him behind Mount St. Helens. I mean, it's a crazy looking shot, but I think my problem with that trip is I got violently ill. The next day we went to where the Olympic project is based, and we hiked. Shane Corson took Mark and I on this insane hike up like this crazy elevation and then back down in like less than an hour. And I got altitude sickness, which had never happened to me before. So I got altitude sickness. I woke up in the middle of the night, couldn't stop throwing up. And then I spent the next 2 days barely able to catch my breath, just exhausted. And at one point I was almost convinced I was going to die. Like Mark was really wanted to take me to the ER because I couldn't breathe. Like that's the whole.
I can't believe it can hit you that hard, like just like that.
It was crazy too, because I've been up I've hiked up mountains, like all this stuff. I've never had that, but it was also, it might have been a little bit of exhaustion too, because we had basically flown into southern Washington, driven all the way up to Mount St. Helens, shot a bunch of interviews. This was after flying for 12 hours, shot a bunch of interviews. Didn't get back to a hotel till like 11 o'clock PST, which in my head is like, 2 a.m. And didn't fall asleep until like late. So it was probably just a bunch of different factors that led to it. But all three of those, or all of those locations are really gorgeous. I want to hit the PNW again, but I want to do it when I'm not barely alive.
Right. Good plan. Yeah. So of all the adventures you've been on, then which case that you've worked on, I'll say, resonates with you the most? Because I've watched a few of yours and I was totally, Bigfoot and UFOs, it's not that I have anything against it. I've just never been drawn or pulled into it. Yeah. In recent years I have. But I have to say, number one, you have an amazing speaking voice because it's very easy to listen to you talk about things that are not necessarily. No, you have a very nice speaking voice. It was great. That's the one thing I noticed. I was like, wow, I could listen to this all day about UFOs, and I really could care less about it. So, but it's nice because it draws your audience in, and I did want to pay attention to what I was watching, and I did want to learn more, and I was interested in it, even though it's not something I would have normally been interested in. Right. So, I'm open-minded to everything, but we have our interests, and so it was just really so all the different cases that you worked on, because you've worked on so many different things. What would be
such a good question, because
which one resonated with you? Which one really stuck with you, or that felt like it really spoke to you?
It's really tough because there's three that always spring to mind, and I don't know. It kind of depends on like what day it is for me to really.
Okay. Hey, you know what? I get that. To be honest, I totally get that.
The one I get the most emotional over is still going to be like the Mothman with the Silver Bridge collapse, and I don't necessarily connect the Mothman and the Silver Bridge collapse, but having been there, having been friends with Carolyn Harris, talked to Carolyn Harris about her own like the people she lost. She lost a son and her husband in that bridge collapse. So like I'm emotionally connected to that story. But beyond that, I think I'm going to cop out and just do all three. So like Minerva was the first. It's my first story, and it's also the one that I was closest to. I grew up near Minerva, and so it involved this family that during 1978, the summer of 1978, started seeing some sort of hairy creature on the hill behind their house. It came down off the hill one night and freaked them out. They called the police, and the police came out to investigate. And because of that, the local news media picked up the story. And the next thing they knew, they were sort of at the center of this like media whirlwind. There was local media was covering it. There were drunken Bigfoot hunters crawling through the woods, with guns behind their house and all sorts of craziness. And having been around the family, spent so much time around the family and stuff like that, I think that really resonates with me. But Whitehall, I really think. Whitehall is really special for me too, because my dad and I mean, the crew was myself, my dad, and Brandon. Like when we had to go back and remake the movie, and we had less than 48 hours to reshoot the whole movie.
Really?
So we shot, so Beast of Whitehall was shot in like, technically the whole thing was shot in like 36 hours. And so I have really fond memories of spending time with my dad and Brandon Dela, who, like, Brandon and I are really good friends, and Brandon's been involved in STM since Minerva, and now he lives out in Los Angeles. So like we don't spend any time together anymore. So when I do think about it, like, it's just a really special thing to have my dad and Brandon involved to that extent. But then beyond that, just the story and spending time with Brian and Bill Brand and all, those guys, Paul Bartholomew, all the interpersonal drama that goes on.
So are you all related?
Just a little bit. Yeah.
All that drama.
Because I'm the newbie here. So how are you all connected?
Well,
why is it such a big, fun time?
Yeah. Okay, so that story is in 1976. I'm gonna cram the story down.
It is the best story.
Yeah, in 1976, these three kids were in a pickup truck and they saw a Bigfoot on a road called Abear Road. They went into town. They reported it to one of the kids' brother, who happened to be a law officer in Whitehall. He came back out. Other members of law enforcement came out. They witnessed the creature as well. Up to 11 members of law enforcement, if I'm not mistaken. It's been a while since I've paid attention to the Whitehall story.
State police, the sheriffs, the local PD, everybody.
Yeah. And so 11 members of local law enforcement saw this thing. And like with Minerva, it blew up. It was like a media sensation, like locally and nationally. And Paul Bartholomew is sort of the newbie in Whitehall who looked into the story and wrote about it, and he's most frequently connected with the Beast of Whitehall case simply because he wrote about it and covered it. Bill Brand was the investigator who was actually on the scene at the time, went to the location, interviewed witnesses, all that kind of stuff. So Bill's the old school investigator, very crotchety, curmudgeonly.
I love that word.
Yeah, and I adore, like, Bill. Bill's seriously one of my favorite people that I've interviewed, just because, like, reminds me of my grandpa or something. Like, I get it. Like, I get where he's coming from. I understand the animosity. I get it all. And all these guys kind of butt up against each other because they feel like, I don't think I can put Paul in that category, but the other guys kind of like, they all kind of like butt heads over whose story this is, who this story belongs to.
Gotcha.
And so,
show
like,
love, guys, show love. I mean, come on.
I stood between one of the tables with both of them a couple years back and went, where's Paul? I'm going up here.
I think they accidentally got put together at a table at the Beast of Whitehall premiere. They were at tables, like adjoining tables in Whitehall. I didn't put them there. Maybe I did. I might not have.
It's like, oh, maybe I did, maybe I didn't.
But so that Whitehall case, that still resonates with me, just because I think on a personal level, there's a lot of really fond memories. Like, I don't know how else to put it. I just really fond memories of that shoot. And then the other one is the Flatwoods Monster, which was the Flatwoods Monster case involved a group of kids that lived in central West Virginia in a town called Village of Flatwoods, who in 1952, if I'm not mistaken, it's been a while since I looked into that one too. The dates, I have so many different dates in my head now that everything runs together. But in September 12th, 1952, I think that's it. They saw a strange object streak across the sky, land on top of a hill. They went up the hill to investigate, and when they reached the top of the hill, they encountered this 13-foot tall, sort of metallic being or object that rolled toward them or hovered toward them. They ran down the hill, and the rest is history. And that's like the story. Like, that's the story I told. That's the story I was interested in. But that story resonates with me because of the fact that I grew really close to the two lead witnesses. Like, they're now in their late 70s. They're my dad's age. My dad is actually the reason I got an interview with one of the brothers. They're Ed and Fred May. Freddie May has always talked about the story, and he's been in a number of documentaries involving that story. But Ed May had never talked about it on camera, and I came to find out later that he had never even talked about it to Fred May. Like Fred had never heard him tell the story before. So
why?
The ridicule. So like after they came forward with it, and this is a part of the movie, after they came forward with their story, the story got changed so much by the media that it became unrecognizable to what their actual experience was. And they experienced a ton of ridicule because of it. But I took my dad with me to interview Fred, which happened to be somewhere in West Virginia, at Ed's house. And Ed really wanted to meet my dad because Ed owns a house that belonged to like a Civil War general. And my dad's a big Civil War buff, and Ed is a big Civil War buff. So Ed wanted to meet my dad. I took my dad. My dad just being there was how we convinced Ed to do the interview. So,
Really?
so yes. And just being around them, and, you can get you get, it's tough because everyone, it's hard to read people. It's, you can always say this is a very believable person, blah, blah, blah. But at the end of the day, you don't know if someone's telling you the truth ever or not.
Right.
And, having said that, like, if, these two guys were so honest and believable, I cannot see them making this up, and they gained nothing by telling the story over the years, and, so those are the three that always pop up in my head. And it's weird because those are all fairly older, STM projects, I guess. Flatwoods is the most recent, came out in 2018, but for us, that's a long time ago. That's like 5 projects in my rear view. So
that's awesome though. Yeah. But I'm kind of not surprised. I think the things that we work on earliest and the things we go through early on when we're discovering ourselves and finding ourselves, we make the most connections with. Not that you don't with other things as you move forward, but because it's so special and things are more raw and you go through those, it's almost like the experiences mean more to you on a more personal level, on a deeper level. At least that's like how I see it.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and STM is a family business. Like at the end of the day, STM's run by my wife and I, and we drag our 3-year-old with us, through all the craziness. And so even though the audience has grown so much, I almost feel in some ways like STM has gotten more tight knit since it began in 2015. And the group is really like Jason and Zach. Jason records our sound and Zach shoots everything. He's the director of photography. They're my 2 oldest friends. Like we've been friends since we were kids. Nice. And then, my wife helps run everything. So it's a really it's become more of a family than anything. And when we're all together, it's really strange because you'll be like, there was this experience we had this last year where, Alexander Pedikov he's a filmmaker that I'm friends with, and he directed On the Trail of Champ, which was the first On the Trail of miniseries for us. It's also the only STM project I didn't direct. But he was visiting, he was up here, and at the same time, Adam Dugan was here, and Adam was a producer on Momo, and he also played Edgar Harrison in Momo, and he's in On the Trail of UFOs, and he was in On the Trail of Bigfoot. So he's like a member of the family as well. And we were all just like wandering around our neighborhood one night, and we had, Tommy, we're like pushing Tommy in his stroller, and Adrian and I are talking, and Adam and Alex are talking. I looked at my wife and I was like, this is the weirdest family. Like we have this weird, constantly expanding family. And that's how it's starting to feel.
Oh, there's nothing wrong with that, especially in this day and age. We need family and friends and people around us like that, as crazy as we all are.
Yeah, agreed.
But it shows your heart and soul, You're still out there at the small convention, seeing everybody, and we've done a couple events together, and it's just awesome, Before I lose them, I do have a couple of questions from the audience. And one was, what is a vortex? And I don't know which one.
I have no idea.
Joint. Okay.
Yeah. Like, I couldn't get.
I mean, I can sort of, but
I couldn't get like a straightforward answer from people when I was in Sedona as to what a vortex is, and it seemed like everyone was giving us different answers. It has something to do with like energy and potentially being like a portal to another dimension.
Yeah.
But
you're on the right track. I can validate that for you.
But like that area is very, very like new agey. And they have like the head shops all over the place, and they've got it's all very. There are like ET tours where they take you out at night and like they're going to connect you with the aliens and everything, and it's very. And so I could never really get a read on if this is like a more metaphysical, or if it's an actual like natural phenomena that people are experiencing when they go there. So I'm just not entirely clear on what they are.
I've got a couple of friends that are energy healers that go out there. I've been out there myself on the way up to the canyon, and like you said, there's nothing like it. It's weird. The energy's weird, but they've done pictures with a biofield imager, and you can see the energies coming up. I'm trying to think of the rock, and it's not going to come to me off the top of my head, and I can picture it right in my head. But yeah, you'll see those spirals. They can measure that energy, and
that's what's strange about it is there is a natural, like it does seem to be scientific in some ways. Like it's something that is quantifiable, but I'm not clear on how any of this works or any of that kind of stuff. And that's one of those things too.
It's all different too.
Right. And we were like in Sedona for less than 24 hours is the other thing I should mention. Like that trip was only 4 days long. So like we went from Phoenix to Sedona to Area 51 back to Vegas. So it was.
You couldn't really take anything in, really.
No, it was like get as much as you could get done in like the 18 hours we were there, and then get out and have a really good pizza, because we did have really good pizza there.
Ooh, really?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I'm from Buffalo, so pizza's fantastic here.
Then you went to Vegas, right? Right after.
Yeah. We went to Vegas after Area 51, fittingly, and I had never been to Vegas before, so that in itself was an experience for me.
I've been there. I can't wait.
Yeah,
there's aliens all over that place.
Yeah, I was going to say it's not really my scene, but whatever.
I used to be every January I went out there for a trade show. I skipped this year, but probably a good thing with everything going on. Okay, the next question. This is from Vicky. Seth, have you ever been, let's say, looks like investigated Fells Point in Baltimore, Maryland?
No, but Baltimore is like one of my favorite places to visit, as long as I don't get shot. And sorry, no offense to anyone who lives in Baltimore. But no, it's I love that city. Like it's so historic, and the architecture is amazing. But no, I'm not even aware of what that is. My only like experience with Baltimore in this light, like in this whole like paranormal world light, is that trip I got to go on last year where I hung out at the Lord Baltimore Hotel with the Reeps. So like that's it. I need to get into that area more often. I feel like I'm letting all these question askers down by answers. I don't know what a vortex is. I don't know what.
You're doing fine.
I think you and I started down this path about the same time. So as stuff comes in, like Kristie kind of handles the paranormal side of the house. I handle the cryptid side of the house, and the people I'm going to are the people that we go to for stuff like Jay and Eric and Steve. It's like, okay. Who's in the Rolodex so I can get out there,
Right.
I don't know. She dragging me off to different haunted houses now, and it's like, okay, hotels,
It's hysterical to watch. You have to come with us sometimes, Seth, because it's when he runs like a little girl, it's amazing. I Or should I
Oh,
say
yeah.
little boy? Sorry, because I didn't run.
I'd love to witness that.
I'm teasing. I'm sorry, jumping out of the chair. That's what it is. Not running away, jumping out of the chair.
We did a live feed and somebody came through a doorway I didn't expect to be there. So.
Go back and look. It's all recorded.
Oh, good. Yeah, I
with an open like passway, and then the old rectory. They're all attached. They're all up in the house. I'm down in the church alone, and everybody's screaming like, "Yeah, there's something behind you." Yeah, there's nothing. There's nothing there. All of a sudden, there's somebody there, and I'm like, "Hey, you're supposed to be in another building."
That was so funny.
So, Fells Point is an underground railroad. That's kind of cool.
Yeah.
That's kind of cool. Gene said, "Thank you for the answer." Yeah, the vortex things are really cool. Let's see.
Yeah. Just a quick shout out. Heather Madison's in the audience right now. I don't know if you've ever heard of Heather. She's a friend of mine. She's also an amazing psychic medium, and she owns Greystone Manor in Gasport, New York. And actually, that was Greystone actually made it onto. Sorry, Heather, Most Haunted Places. Onto the show on Travel Channel. So she's watching right now as well. And we will actually be live. We'll talk about that later, but we're going live next month from her place as well. So that'll be pretty cool. So she's on here watching you too.
Oh, cool. Yeah. Awesome.
I've got all my questions written out in front of me, so I'm just trying to look at the big picture. I'm not trying. So how do you pick your locations? How do you decide what story you're gonna go with? I mean, it's awesome to see what you have, because it's such a diverse, and are you going to do anything on Jersey Devil? Because that's our next little foray. I think Kristie and I are going to run down to mess with some guys.
That's the case we get asked about the most is the Jersey Devil. So it's definitely on my list. I want to do. I'll tell you, like Jersey. The dream is to do like an East Coast trilogy. Right now we're working our way through the Southern Monsters. We just finished Monsters of the Midwest. So we're doing Southern Monsters, and they're broken into trilogies. So Southern Monsters is going to be Mothman Legacy, The Mark of the Bell Witch, and then something else in the South that I am not 100% sure on yet. But then I want to do, after that, I'd like to do Monsters of the Desert, or, something out in the Southwest is kind of where I want to go next. But then after that, I'd really like to get back to the East Coast and do Sleepy Hollow, Jersey Devil, and then maybe like a full scale documentary about the Hudson Valley UFO waves. I'd love to do that, because those play a big role in On the Trail of UFOs, because those stories are some of my favorite, and I was insistent we get up to Hudson Valley when we were making On the Trail of UFOs. So we spent a bunch of time there. But yeah, I mean, as far as like what we cover, so the biggest thing is we're looking for witnesses. So if it's a story that has no witnesses, I'm probably not going to be interested as interested. Having said that, we're making The Mark of the Bell Witch. But like I really want to talk to witnesses. So we pick stories where I know we can get people involved that had a role in that, initial event. There's also an element of wanting to I guess, looking to the area geographically. Like, what does it look like? What's the landscape look like? We were really conscious when we were making Monsters of the Midwest that we didn't want those three movies to all look identical, because they're coming out one after the next. So you started with Bray Road Beast, and then you went to Terror in the Skies, and then you went to Momo. And really, like, those three are a beautiful example of how varying the Midwest can be. Like, if you really watch them, because Bray Road is flat, pasture land and cornfields, tiny pockets of forest, and that's it. And then you get into Terror in the Skies, and it's all about Illinois and how, varying the topography and the terrain is there. And then you get into Momo, which is like, that looks like you're in the deep South minus the mountains. Like, that's what it really looks like there. So I love that. So I'm really aware of the actual locations and the way the locations look. So I think it's an element of all three of those. And then obviously, like, finding a hook story wise that I think we can, like, how can we tell this story? Like, the biggest, the biggest I come back to is Momo. Like I'd been talking about making a Momo movie since we made Minerva Monster. And that was like, no matter what, I was going to make a Momo movie. And people were like, well, who are you going to interview? Because none of the Harrison family want to talk about this. And, you know, there was a lot of them were Edgar was dead. And, you know, like, so a lot of the people that were involved in the initial Momo story were gone or they didn't want to talk. And I said, we'll figure it out. And we had these story meetings. This is the only time we've ever done this. We had these story meetings where we got the entire sort of like core STM crew together here at my house. It was like 7 of us, and we sat down and we figured out a way to tell that story that wouldn't be just a documentary. So that's how Momo ended up being 50% narrative film, 50% documentary. And the documentary is a very true to life documentary, and the narrative film is as out there and weird and ridiculous as you can get. And
you got some awesome actors to do that recreation, I must say.
In Momo,
yeah.
My dad is in that movie. Like we put everyone we could in that movie, whether they act or not. The best. I still think.
Cliff whether they act or not, I like that.
Yeah, Cliff and Bobo. Cliff and Bobo in that are highlights for me because like Bobo has the line, "There's something on the hill, kill it," which is like obviously a throwback to his "There's something" Matt Moneymakers, line from Finding Bigfoot. And but we had so much fun with that. That movie is like the most creatively fulfilled I've ever felt working on a project because you just like every day was some new obstacle, new challenge you had to figure your way through. But like the point is, I knew I wanted to tell that story. I just didn't know how we were going to manage, considering there was no one who wanted to talk about it. And it kind of flew in the face of everything we've established STM as being before that movie.
Wow.
So there's no set pattern as to how we decide, because Mark of the Bell Witch, I'm essentially making that movie because Jason is terrified of the Bell Witch. Like Jason, one of my oldest friends, as a kid, he, for some reason, someone told him the Bell Witch story. He got terrified of it and was having like recurring nightmares about the Bell Witch. So his dad told him to get rid of the nightmares. They had to draw a picture of the Bell Witch and then burn it. And so Jason did that. And then it apparently cured him of his nightmares. Well, as soon as I heard that, I was like, well, we got to do this just to mess with him. So now he's convinced that this is all like some ploy by the Bell Witch to get him back down to Adam so she can kill him. So we're going to have a blast. So basically I'm making
I don't know. I mean, you know, sometimes we can be called back, you know, certain places look for us. And, you know, we have a quick question because actually there's somebody in the audience. Dawn is asking, what is Momo? Like she doesn't know what it is. Can you explain a little bit about what you're talking about?
Yeah, Momo is the Missouri Monster. And the Missouri Monster was a case from, I'm not even going to try to remember what year. 1970. I can't remember. It's the 1970s. I've made how many movies? And like 6 of them are 1970s cases. Yeah. So yeah, there was a
simple wardrobe thing.
Yeah. It's super similar to the Minerva story too, in that it involves a family that lived with a huge hill behind their house. The hill was called Marzoff Hill, which was known by locals as Star Hill. This family lived with this hill behind their house, and one day the two of the boys were in the backyard playing. They hear some rustling and smell something weird. They look up and there's this huge, like shaggy, hair-covered monster holding a dead dog in its hand. And they freak out. They run inside and report it to their sister. Sister looks out the window. She also sees it. They tell their dad. He becomes kind of obsessed with it and starts trying to find it. And this gets into the local media. It's the same story. All these stories are the same. Like if you really look at them, they're all the same. They report it to the local media. Local media starts running with it. It becomes a national story. All of a sudden, there's people combing through the woods with guns looking to kill Momo, the Missouri monster. And but Momo is cool because all these other sightings happened at the same time. I mean, so many there's numerous sightings took place by locals of whatever this thing was. It is strange if you go to Louisiana, Missouri. That hill, Star Hill, is actually, it's kind of smack dab in the middle of the town. It's not what you would consider like a place where a Bigfoot would go hide out. Like it's not isolated in any way. So it's kind of strange. It's kind of a strange location. Yeah.
Can you see her comment?
Oh yeah. I think that's actually what happened.
I'd be with you, Don.
Yeah.
Every time we go out, or when we went out, just even Bigfooting, I was looking at Mike going, "You have your gun, right?" I don't know what that's gonna do with some 12-foot big whatever we're gonna find, but you got your gun, right?
Yeah. You're much more in danger from like the black bear or whatever than you are Bigfoot.
Yeah. That was funny.
But yeah, that's the story. That's like all there is to it. It's been largely forgotten by Louisiana, Missouri, where it took place, and they would like to keep it that way. They'd like to move on.
Who's your research specialist? Who is you or your wife, or the
no,
team
it's actually,
get together? And
it's always been me up until Momo. We started working with a friend of mine named Heather Mosier, and Heather's like a genius folklorist. And she helps me with all the research. So especially on Momo, that came in very handy because it's really hard to find people to talk to about Momo. And she did a great job on that one. She's also worked on Mothman Legacy. She did a great job with that. And then she's really working like neck deep right now in Mark of the Bell Witch. So she's been amazing, and it helps to an insane degree to have someone else that's kind of like doing all the legwork when it comes to the research side of things, especially like figuring out who needs to be contacted and that kind of stuff. Right. So I still do a lot of research, but it's much more focused now on like, I can build off of what she's already created and focus more on the storytelling. And that has really helped because we put out so many projects per year, you know? So that sounded like a burp or something. I
think it was Mike's microphone.
Your microphone. It made it create noise.
If not, from all the years of diving, I just ended up breathing all night, and everybody's like, "There's something behind you." No, it's just Mike's microphone. I went to school for criminal justice and archaeology and anthropology.
Yeah.
You know, my background's a little different. You know, technology. That's probably why they make fun of my setup here. You know, it's like kid size for my.
It is. I didn't want to say anything. I didn't know if that was like a trick of like some sort of like weird illusion. I thought maybe you'd green screened those onto your head as well.
No, I get picked on it quite a bit. Somebody wanted to buy me a set of frozen, set up, make it more kid friendly, I guess. So, he's had to work with me in enough places. We'll let him pick on it. So.
You should see what I have to take him in public. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, it's not good. You see me run around covered in mud, that Pennsylvania Bigfoot thing.
Mud kind of camouflages you, though. Like, it's just standing right out like a sore thumb, right? Sorry. Okay.
Now, you said Mothman was pretty, important to your stuff. You had a pretty good experience there, didn't you? With the film crew or something like that when you're doing Mothman, if I remember correctly?
This is the most convoluted story. It's really difficult to tell this because it sounds like we were hoaxing something. Are you talking about the like noise we heard? Yeah. Okay. So this is really difficult to tell because it's immediately obvious or it becomes like, okay. So we were there. It wasn't when we were making our movie. We were there filming a Japanese television show, and we were making this Japanese television show, and I was like the lead guy I was their Mothman expert. on this Japanese television show, and we mostly did it because we thought it would be hilarious to hear ourselves like dubbed into Japanese, because
Really?
yeah, because like the guy that voiced me sounded like a samurai from like an Akira Kurosawa movie. Like it was hello, like it was that kind of thing. And so like
awesome.
we were okay, so we had been there, we had already been there for 5 days. We were out there for 5 days. We were camping in the TNT area with them, with the film crew. We would go home, we would go back to the hotel every night, and you were so covered in ticks you would have to take all your clothes off in the bathtub and then shake them out, and the ticks would just fall in the tub. Like it was ridiculous how many ticks there were. So anyway, we've been out there for 5 days, and it was the last night, and Brandon Dalo was up there, and some of the crew, like a bunch of my crew was there for this night. And we had hiked way out into the TNT area with this crew, with this Japanese film crew. And we had Brandon and I had kind of led them in this other direction than they had wanted to go. They wanted to go back toward these like abandoned buildings. We wanted to go up this valley that went between these two hills. We go, it's like 2 a.m. We're walking down this trail. And we came through this pitch black path, and Brandon and I, the first thing we noticed was these like huge holes in the underbrush on both sides. I don't know how to put it other than it looked like a game trail, only it was made by something big and, like something had gone down one hill and then up the other hill. And you could, there's thick underbrush lining both sides of the track or the trail. And you could see that something had wore a path through there. And there was a massive animal tunnel or something. And we thought that was interesting. And we started walking past that, and, it was at this point that it became apparent to us that the Japanese film crew was frantic to get us back in the direction they had wanted to go. And we came to find out it was because they were hoaxing. They had a guy stationed in the bushes back by their campsite, which was a good mile away from where we were. And they wanted to get us back there so this guy could like scare us, and they could act like there was a Mothman hiding in the bushes. But Brandon and I weren't having any of it because we were genuinely thinking there was something going on where we were, which was like the other side of the TNT area. And so they left us. Like they straight up left us. And as they're leaving, Brandon and I are like standing in the path trying to decide what we're going to do. And a rock comes off of one of the hills and lands like right next to us. And as I bend over to pick up this rock and check it out, another rock comes off the other hill. So we're like in this valley, there's two hills, and there's rocks coming off of both hills. And Brandon and I are there. The film crew's now like maybe 200 yards away, heading away from us. We're trying to decide if we want to follow them or not. And I start hearing like what sounds like talking in the trail behind us. So I turn around, I kill my headlamp. And I'm like, Brandon, kill your headlamp. He kills his headlamp. We're standing there, and I start to hear like what straight up sounds like samurai chatter it sounds like these weird voices, like in the trail ahead of us. And like, I want to see Bigfoot. So naturally I just take off at a dead sprint toward the voices, and with my headlamp off, I can't see anything. I'm just running toward these voices full speed. And, Brandon gives chase, but he turns his light on. And as soon as he did, the voices stopped. And I stopped, running, and the voices stopped, and there's nothing ahead of us. So like, I'm like, kill your light, kill your light. He kills his light. As soon as he did, it sounded like something jumped into the trail ahead of us or slammed. It sounded like a boulder being slammed onto the trail. And I took off running toward it again. Brandon was freaking out, turned his light back on, and it was gone again. And so at that point it was over. Like whatever it was, like we thought it was gone. So we turn around and we ended up following the film crew back toward the toward their base camp, and their base camp's on the other side of what are the old aqueducts, which are for anyone that hasn't been to the TNT area, it's the area where the Mothman was seen in the 60s, and it's this it's a massive wildlife preserve, nature preserve now, fully overgrown, but it's weird because there's still these buildings that were used during World War II to manufacture TNT, so they call it the TNT area. So we're walking back toward base camp, and we get into this massive clearing, football size clearing, and football field size, not the size of a football. That would be a real small clearing. We get into this huge clearing, and there's a tree. There's one lone tree in the middle of this field. And from like 200 yards behind us, a rock came off the hill and slammed directly into that tree, like hit the one thing in that field it could have hit. And that was it. Like nothing else happened. We don't know what it was. It could have been like some West Virginia hillbillies hiding in the hills throwing rocks at us or something. But we have no idea what it was, but it was a really weird incident.
Wow, that's crazy.
Do you take any thermal cams with you when you go out to film for, just stock footage or?
Not for something like that, because we weren't even there filming. We didn't have any cameras. Now, when we go on the trail we have a couple of night vision cameras. For on the trail of Bigfoot 2, I'd like to get some sort of thermal so we have something to use. But yeah, we didn't have anything. It just we were there for laughs mostly. I mean, we were on a Japanese TV show that's never been shown in the US. We just thought it was going to be funny. So that incident was really weird.
Wow.
Dawn thinks you should make a video or write a book about behind the making of small town monsters. Do you have something like that?
There's a book coming out this year actually called Making Monsters. That's a coffee table size book. It's not the size of a coffee table, but it's like a coffee table book. And it's got it's all about the first 5 years of STM, and it's written by Mark Matsky, who's been involved since the very beginning.
That's awesome. Wow. So when you have your hand in, let's see, we've done UFOs, you've gone after Bigfoot. I mean, I don't know. Do you classify Momo as a Bigfoot? Do you is it all cryptid or is it all?
Yeah, I mean, Momo's a weird story because it blends. When I tell these stories, I'm telling them in the quickest synopsis I can. Momo involves a lot of weird stuff. So it's got UFOs. It's got people saw UFOs all over Louisiana, Missouri at that point. There were also strange lights seen in the woods, like orbs all over the place. There were disembodied voices people were hearing in the woods. And not like spooky voices, like voices that were asking people if they wanted coffee and, just weird stuff that was going on. So when it comes to Momo, I don't know what to classify it as. Like it sounds like a Bigfoot case on the surface, but when you really dig into what all it entailed, there's a lot of aspects to it that are really bizarre. Which runs the gamut of most 70s reports that we look into. Like a lot of those reports have the really weird, paranormal aspects to them. Yeah, I don't know. I'd classify it as kind of a Bigfoot story, but a little weirder. Like it seems like it would have fit in better on the Chestnut Ridge with Stan Gordon investigating it or something.
Okay. And one episode that I had watched, I think it was one of the first, and of course I'm drawing a blank on the name now, and I didn't write it down because I convinced myself I would remember and I should know better. It was the story of a man who
Albert Ostman.
What was it?
Albert Ostman? The Ostman story?
The one who showed up on the side of the road, and do you know who I'm talking about?
No. Keep going.
Oh yeah, sure. No. No, and it was funny because it really resonated with me. And I don't know why. The man's name was Marty, and he was driving home, and this ship thing appeared, and this man got out, and it was the smile that he noticed.
Oh yeah. That was Woodrow Derenberger story. Injured Cold.
Yes.
Yeah.
What did you think of that?
Well, that's been one of my favorite stories going all the way back to the original Mothman Prophecies movie, because the Mothman Prophecies movie that came out with Richard Gere is like my introduction to the paranormal. Before that, I had no idea this was a thing. I didn't know that people thought UFOs were real. I didn't know that people thought they had encountered aliens. Like, I had no idea about any of this. So the Mothman Prophecies movie was my introduction to this, like all of this.
Right.
And what always stood out to me about that movie was the Injured Cold stuff. Because there's a guy in that movie that is playing a variation of Woodrow Derenberger. Injured Cold's a character in that movie, and it plays a big part. So that story is really fascinating. It's also tragic, like, because that case ruined his family life. Woodrow became obsessed with Indrid, started supposedly going with him on his spaceship to Lanulus, the planet he was from, right, and had encounters with him the rest of his life. But it eventually ruined his marriage. Like, his marriage fell apart. He lost contact with his own kids. Right. And I interviewed his daughter for an episode of Case Files, the web series we did on our YouTube channel. Yes. And it was more about that kind of stuff is what interests me more than who was Injured Cold and like who was the alien. Like, I'm much more interested in, well, how did that affect your family than I am.
Oh, so you're interested in the psychology behind it.
I mean, maybe the psychology, but just from a personal standpoint, I was interested in how did that, as a person, as his daughter, what did that do to you? Like, how did that affect you to see your dad just start disappearing, right, and be gone for weeks at a time? And then her mom just, like, over time, she's like, I've had it. I'm not going to keep waiting here for you. And the family just fell apart. So, like, that kind of stuff is really, yeah, I love that story, but it's a tragedy more than anything.
No, I've not watched everything you've done yet. Anyways,
how dare you?
Yeah, I know, right? My bad. But it merely seems you have you done more paranormal, in the sense of, the spirit wise and energy wise, not just the more, we'll say, for like a better way to describe it, the tangible, like Bigfoot, and UFOs and things like that.
I don't think we've done a lot with that yet. Like, I think Mark of the Bell Witch will be our first step into really like the supernatural. Mm-hmm. And there might be more after it. We had talked about doing On the Trail of Hauntings this year. As of right now, I think we're doing On the Trail of Bigfoot 2, and then there might be another series somewhere after that, but I'm not sure yet what. We're kind of like, partially because of this virus, but also just kind of the fluidity of our schedule in general. Like, we're not even sure what all is coming out next year. Right. Like, right now, we know the only thing set in stone right now for next year, for 2021, is On the Trail of Bigfoot 2. That's Mona. That's my mini schnauzer.
What's his name?
It's She's a girl. It's Mona.
Oh,
Ramona.
Oh, Ramona, I love it. Oh, sweetie.
We usually have ours sneaking in. Usually my Doberman sneaks in, or Christie's dog sneaks in, or the shepherd sneaks in and moves the TV out of the way. I do have a couple of questions from the audience. Mm-hmm. And one would be, have you ever met Travis Walton or Mike Rogers in regards to the fire in the sky? I don't know if that went into your setup or not.
Well, no, don't scratch the couch. I met Travis at the International Bigfoot Conference in 2018. Actually, the same week that I got that altitude sickness incident. And then I talked to Travis on the phone when we were in Phoenix filming On the Trail of UFOs. So I know him, and I would love to do something with Travis down the road. I'm not familiar with the other name, but Travis, yeah, Travis's story is really interesting.
If I remember, I saw Travis's his documentary or whatever it was the other night, not the Hollywood, his production he did with some people up here, actually out of the Rochester area. Right. So I think Rogers was actually part of that team.
He might have been. The name sounds familiar, but I can't. I think you might.
I'm not a UFO guy. I gotta say though, if you're cutting through to the Adirondacks, we can show you some stuff in Western New York. Kristie's in Niagara Falls. I'm south of Rochester. There's some cool stuff.
Yeah.
And I have a thermal that does audio. So
really,
yeah.
So you got nice ATN.
Yeah, I think we could make that happen. So, so next one be from G. Stevenson, which she probably met you there at Eric's event. Have you been up to the Chestnut Ridge, which is where we do that camping adventure? Mm-hmm. And would you ever consider doing a story? But you've already done.
We've done a lot on the Chestnut Ridge. So we did Invasion. In fact, I'd say Chestnut Ridge and Stan Gordon especially has been in more STM productions than any other location. So we did Invasion on Chestnut Ridge in 2017. In 2018, it featured heavily throughout On the Trail of Bigfoot, especially I think episodes 3 and 4. I think those are the two where it really pops up a lot. And then it appears again in On the Trail of UFOs. We went back to the Chestnut Ridge. We interviewed Stan again. We actually took Stan out on a night ops at a lady's house in downtown Kecksburg who was claiming she was seeing UFOs over her house, and did a night ops at her house. And that's in episode 3 of On the Trail of UFOs that we do that. And then Kecksburg pops up again in episode 5, which is all about conspiracies and government cover-ups. So we've spent a lot of time on the Chestnut Ridge. My dream right now is to do an entire series about the Chestnut Ridge, like do it some sort of episodic series. Because there's so much there to investigate and so much to get into. And Stan's a lot of fun. Stan's like a member of the STM family at this point.
He's awesome. I don't know. Were you there when they found the print back by the tents this last year?
Yeah.
And it was the first time to walk through with Stan and kind of look at things and, have his, focus and his, it was kind of really cool. And then to be able to walk back to Meldrum and Cliff and say, hey, what do you guys think of this? And then realize my tent was, a couple hundred yards from where they found the print. So it's kind of different.
Yeah.
So who's your favorite person to work with? You've got all these really cool people and,
Yeah, that's a great question because Stan really is like, Stan's a ball to work with. But, man, let me think because there's some, I like, David Weatherly might be my new favorite because we interviewed David in Vegas in a hotel. We had him sit in a very specific location on a hotel bed, so you couldn't tell he was in a hotel room when we were shooting this interview. And he ended up sitting in this awkward position for like 3.5 hours while we interviewed him. So, and he did such a good job that he's featured in almost every episode of On the Trail of UFOs. So David's one of my favorites. When you get into witnesses, it's different. It's not, I love interviewing witnesses, but it's a different kind of like, I don't think I could say this person's my favorite or that person's my favorite because their stories are all so specific. But as far as like experts, like subject matter experts, Lauren is a lot of fun. Actually, Lauren Coleman's a lot of fun if you get him on a good day when he's in a good mood. He's been in 2 STM projects. Stan's always in a good mood. I mean, that's the thing. Like Stan's always in a good mood and he's always fun to work with. So I like working with Stan. I like working with Eric Altman a lot. Like he's been in two of our things. And I'd like to get him in some more. So yeah, I think those guys are guys I like working with.
Yeah, we got Eric somewhere on the calendar. We got to check out somewhere. So it's been kind of interesting. I don't know if I'm pilfering from your list of who you've used because you had Jay, and that was awesome. He's trying to get us out to Wisconsin. He's always trying to get me out somewhere. I mean, after we do all this stuff down there. So I'd love to go out and look at that Bray Road setup and go dig around. Let's see if we got any other folks. If you got any questions for Seth, please reach out, throw them in the comments here. Rogers was with Walton in that event, according to Lori here. And folks, just so you know, we're broadcasting to Facebook and YouTube tonight. the Paranormal Warehouse. So it takes a second to figure out where exactly I'm getting you. I'm bouncing things out.
Happy St. Patrick's Day, everybody.
Yep.
We kind of missed skip right over that today.
Didn't see really that many people out in the green. I don't know how are things down your way, Seth, for this crazy virus. So,
yeah, I mean, where we are, it's today was a lot quieter than yesterday. Yesterday, Tommy and I left and actually went to a park and went for a hike. But today it's really quiet. Yeah, it was weird. It was kind of eerie. I mean, it's all kind of eerie, but today was especially eerie. I actually went to the office today, so I was downtown at my office, and it just seemed much quieter than usual. So I didn't see anyone out celebrating St. Patrick's Day.
Yeah. We have to do a little bit here, that's all.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mike's gonna get up and dance for us later and turn on some.
Oh yeah, probably no.
No, that will definitely break a camera somewhere.
Or we'll get a lot of reviews. I have to at least glance at a little. I'm half Irish, half Italian, so I have to at least a little bit, support my.
So
I don't do beer or any beer, so yeah.
So Dawn, what started your journey into the paranormal? Was there a definite event that said this is where you're going?
Yeah, I mean, this is the problem is my story is so boring because I don't have I didn't have like an incident, like an inciting incident that got me into this stuff. There was what really got me into like looking into it for myself was I found like when I first started getting into Bigfoot, I found out that there were these reports of Bigfoot sightings on this road that sort of bordered the area where I grew up as a kid. And it was a tiny town in the middle of nowhere in Ohio, really forested. It's actually on the northern end of what Don Keating dubbed the Sasquatch Triangle. So, which I didn't know growing up. I didn't know anything about Bigfoot. So when I first started getting into it, I would go down there and drive around, and I would find locals and talk to them and just ask them, like, have you witnessed any, did you see anything like that? And over time, I found out there had been a bunch of sightings in the 70s. The sightings had tapered off. And then more recently, the sightings had started again. And this would have been back in like maybe 2008, somewhere around there, 2007, 2008. So, that was like that was my first quote unquote investigation, like was basically just driving around and talking to people. Mm-hmm. And then from there it just grew, but that was like that was where my interest in all this sort of started to really get it to the point where I was going out and looking into things for myself. But no, there was no incident or anything that happened to me. I need to make up something. I need to have like I was abducted by a Bigfoot riding a UFO as a kid or something.
On the back of Champ with a Glock. Yeah. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah, spice it a
little bit. We had another one here. Whoops. My finger's not working tonight. It's definitely a long day at work. Again from Garnet. Would you ever consider going up to Yosemite National Park, making a movie on the disappearance of people, plus the sightings and encounters? And it sounds like kind of like a 411 kind of thing.
I really want to get up to Yosemite because I've never gone there, and I'm obsessed with the national parks. Like, I yearly watch Ken Burns' National Parks docuseries because it's one of the best documentary series ever made. But like when it comes to the missing 411 stuff, I've been pretty open about the fact that I'm just not into it. Like I have some issues with it, frankly. So I'm just not into it. Having said that, I'm interested in missing people. I'm interested in the idea of like, potential abduction stuff. So it wouldn't be something I would walk away from. And I would definitely look into like Bigfoot sightings in national parks. I'm really interested in that stuff, especially when it comes to like Smoky Mountain, because I spent a lot of time in the Smoky Mountain National Park as a kid. So like Smoky Mountains and Yosemite, really want to get out to Yellowstone and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, it's something I would be interested in. I want to bring, if I ever get into, we've talked about doing like on the trail of the missing or on the trail of missing people. If I ever did that, I wouldn't want it to be like Missing 411 Part 2. I have to bring my own completely different sort of look at that kind of stuff rather than solely investigating like missing people cases. It's and also you got to be really careful because one of my biggest problems with the Missing 411 stuff over time has become that the community that's kind of grown up around that, they almost seem to get off on the idea of like people going missing. And, you know, and there's like an excitement built around it. And it's like they're just spooky stories, but those are people's lives and real people that went missing and they touched real people. That stuff touches on real people and
Twitter
tragedy.
Accounts
Yeah.
Set up to it's disgusting. You know?
Yeah. And so that kind of stuff really bothers me. And I'm a baby when it comes to that stuff anyway. Like I don't like human suffering. I don't like to hear about that kind of stuff. But there is. I mean, you can't deny there is something really interesting about some of those cases. If I ever did anything like that, it would have to I'd have to come at it from my own vantage point, and it would honestly probably end up being like a really depressing drama where I'd interview the family more than I would people who would talk about the mystery angle.
And that kind of leads me to, you know, when you do go and talk to a witness, or you decide that that's the person you're going to go for, how do you decide that they're not going to be the quote unquote clickbait person, you know, that's just trying to get, now with social media and YouTube and, you know, we're here on that platform right now, but there's so much now that you're like, all right, is that a real story or is that? And I think the more, what am I looking for?
There's really only been one time where I know someone lied to me. And I only know because I found out after the fact, after the movie was released, and after it's someone. I got to be real careful when I'm talking about this because it becomes real obvious who I'm talking about. It's a very popular story, and it's connected to a very popular case. And it's someone who frequently retells this story. So it was later that I found out they had lied, like they had made the story up. So that's the only time I look for stories in advance, and I'm usually aware of the witness sightings that are going to be in the film long before we make the film. So I think I'm aware. I think typically I've already either talked to that person and believe them, or it's a verifiable story, you know, with witnesses or someone else that can sort of back it up. I don't know. It's a hard part of what I do because there's a different. I often say it's like you're battling with yourself because there's like the Seth Breedlove who's a filmmaker and a documentarian and just really wants to capture the story regardless, you know, because that's as an objective storyteller, it isn't really my place to dictate who's in it or not. You know, like going back to Whitehall, the best example is that, and I can't think of his name now, but there's that guy in Beast of Whitehall who claims he was involved in the Abear Road sighting. I can't think of his name, but no one else we talked to was aware of that guy, had ever heard of him, including Brian Gosselin, who was connected to the story.
The kid on the rock?
Yeah. Well, Rock.
Well, maybe that was another one.
It's the guy we interviewed who said he was basically there the night of the Abear Road sighting. He was in another car that was following their car.
Okay.
And I can't think of his name now, but we couldn't find anyone to verify. And so we put it in the episode. We put it in that movie. Like the narration flat out says, like, we couldn't find a single person to verify what this guy says. But like, if it's true, this is a big piece of a puzzle, you know, that people aren't really aware of. So it's a tightrope walk where you're trying to, you want to be honest, but you also have to realize, like, it's not really my place to dictate who's telling the truth and who isn't. You know, one aspect of this that I find is, like, the more outlandish the story, the more believable the witness a lot of times too. Yeah. And that's really weird too.
Yep.
You know, I've spent 20 plus years interviewing people, every day.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, the crazier something is, you can see it in their eyes. It's there.
Yeah.
When they're going ahead and they can look right at you and you're like, oh, the color was purple. And Kristie and I had this talk, and I talked with a couple of people the other day. The same thing. If you can imagine it, it's not there. If it's like, oh my God,
Mm-hmm.
you can't get that information. You can't make some of this stuff up.
No, it's the same as I tell people, just doing readings and doing things like that. People are always afraid to speak up and validate something that I say or that they're connecting with. And I have to tell them, at the beginning, the more weird it sounds, the more crazy you think it's going to make you look or sound, the weirder it's going to feel saying it, the more accurate you are. Welcome to my world. It really, you're not making it up just because it's crazy. And it's like, you can't make this stuff up sometimes, so it's, I know. I think we're all familiar with that in our own different ways, It's true.
Yeah.
It's true. Yeah. My goodness. Do you ever find it makes me curious, because I think this is and because I'm more new to the Bigfoot cryptid scene. And from what I'm seeing, there is this controversy about paranormal versus Bigfoot cryptid.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think about all that? Because I laugh. I'm like, well, to me, anything's possible.
Sure.
People get very upset and very offended when you say
it's like
be paranormal in some way. Like, what do you think?
People put themselves in camps and then they vehemently defend those camps to the point where it becomes like confrontational.
Mm-hmm.
So I actually wrote about this like 4 or 5 years ago, before I'd even had any experiences myself or really interviewed a lot of witnesses. And I still kind of consider this the case. In fact, I'm probably more in this camp than I was when I wrote it 5 years ago. In my opinion, like, if these things exist, they're an undiscovered ape. The paranormal stuff, like, it's super fascinating. I'm not writing it off. I'm not saying it didn't happen.
Right.
But the predominant number of cases don't involve anything remotely paranormal, other than a bizarre creature. And if you really, like, if you look at what the statistics are, it's like maybe like 1% of the cases that are out there where you have that aspect to it. And I always go back to, like, we interviewed Don Keating on the Trail of Bigfoot, and he was a Bigfoot investigator in Ohio for like 30 years, and in that time, he didn't take a single report that involved, some paranormal aspect. And that's out of hundreds of reports that he took. On the other hand, you have Stan Gordon, who it seems like weekly he's taking, like, Bigfoot's walking into portals and stuff. So I'm not writing that stuff off. Yeah. Okay. I just think, like, that if you're merely looking at the evidence that we have, which is mostly eyewitness accounts, those eyewitness accounts seem to indicate simply some sort of unknown animal, like an unknown primate.
Right. I think the biggest question, and the reason why people always go back to it, and I'm not saying one way or the other, to be honest with you, because I don't really have an opinion at this point. I am in a direction that's very new. But it's, what do you think about the fact that these things are so hard to find? I believe there's evidence. I believe there's sightings. I believe there are people who've seen it.
Yeah.
But why is it we're not finding any?
I have no idea.
Or I'm going to say more tangible evidence.
Yeah, I have no idea.
I'm curious about what your opinion is, because you've been working with it for so long.
I don't know. Like, this is the thing, is I think so many people are afraid to say I don't know.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you're not, to be honest.
Yeah, I have no idea. Like, I have the same questions everyone else does. Like, why? And this is why I'm more. I can really go into skeptic land really easily on Bigfoot, because I haven't seen one. Now, having said that, I've experienced things, but I haven't seen one for myself. But yeah, I have all those questions. Why don't we have a picture with everyone walking around with cameras now, on their phone? Why don't we have a picture? Why don't we have a body? Why hasn't someone hit one of these things with their car yet? Why hasn't a hunter taken one out? It's like I have all these questions, the same questions that everyone else does. But at the same time, you've got so many witnesses, so many believable witnesses. Like you can't just write those off either. And something like the Aber Road incident, which apparently is just going to be the conversation point of the evening. It just keeps bringing me back to the fact that like they're probably out there. Like that's where I'm at right now. It's like these things are probably out there. I don't think turning to they went through a portal or they went into a spaceship or whatever necessarily solves the mystery. Like I think you get into you're going into a territory that's way more theoretical than it is anything rooted in evidentiary.
Okay.
Again, like I'm not writing off the people that tell me that stuff. I'm all for it, and I'm super open to listening.
No.
Sound like I have a guilty conscience here.
Yeah, but you have another venue if that comes up, and you keep going back to Aber, and every time I tell people, what do you see? Well, you know what? You've got that many cops in that area. And, the first thing I do is like, hey, go ahead and Google it and then go watch your documentary. Because I tell people, all the time, it's strange. I've had rocks thrown at me within a half an hour there. I found just other stuff. I've been with people up there that's just crazy. I mean, Frank's place, Zaglinski's place across the river there in Vermont, across the pond. It's just, it's a strange area. But,
Well, and just to accidentally draw that story back to the paranormal. I mean, there was a major UFO wave that was taking place synonymously with the Aber Road sightings. There was a sighting of a pterodactyl in the trees off of Aber Road by 2 police officers.
Never heard that one.
Oh yeah, that was one that I learned while I was at Aber Road actually. And then there's Champ, like right there. So right. Like I'm saying there's no paranormal connection to that case, but that isn't really true at all. Like there's a lot of weird stuff that ran concurrent with that case.
Well, yeah, you get Ticonderoga and everything. But yeah, I know Brian's mentioned multiple times, when I talked to him speaking, is that whole area was just crazy.
Yeah.
And I mean, if you look where I'm at in that same time frame, we had 2 deputies in this area that had sightings that was in the Democrat Chronicle years ago. They chased one around the county, and that was just somebody had showed me that article just recently. However, it was Halloween, so who knows? Just gonna
Yeah.
So, what does Seth watch when he's not making documentaries?
It's funny because like especially in the last like 2-3 years, I have a hard time watching stuff. I think I spend a lot of time, like too much time analyzing it, like subconsciously. I can't just sit down and watch movies anymore for fun. I like start analyzing everything. I'm trying to figure out how they edit stuff, and it becomes almost a job instead of like what it's supposed to be, which is relaxing and fun. I watch more like sports and play video games way more than I watch movies anymore. But I love the Last Chance U on Netflix, which is like this documentary series about college football. And I watch a lot of Ken Burns stuff. My mom like raised me on Ray Harryhausen movies. So like Ray Harryhausen and Alfred Hitchcock and the Marx Brothers and Abbott and Costello and like that kind of stuff is constantly in my brain, even if I'm not watching it. Okay. And then, so it's not, it's weird. I feel like I've fallen off with my movie watching in the last couple of years. I think last year, Adrian and I made a conscious effort to like try to go out on dates that involved going to movies. Cause we just, we have a 3-year-old and like, we rarely were seeing movies. So like the best movie I saw last year was Knives Out. And that was like maybe one of like 5 movies I saw in theaters. So like, I feel like I'm out of the loop always on what's playing. I've seen 12 minutes of Kong versus Godzilla, which doesn't even come out until next November. So that's probably the best movie I've seen in the last the last like year. So
That's funny. Well, what else do you do? Because it is hard when you know something. You know, I'm a dental assistant, so I'm always looking at people's teeth when they smile and their mouth. It's not even on purpose. It's just my training. You can't help yourself. So it makes sense that you analyze things and you look at things and you can't always turn off and enjoy the other side of things. So what else do you like to do? What else do you do? I mean, I know I have 3 kids myself, so when you take on the role of mom and dad, it's kind of like, well, I used to do this. I used to do that.
Yeah, I think like so yeah, I play a lot of video games, which is super boring. And I listen to some podcasts. And then I hang out with my kid and my wife, and that's like it. Like my life when we're not filming, my life is very, very in this house, like where I am right now. This is like, unless I'm out of town, like I'm either in my office downtown or I'm here. And, like we take walks to the park, and you do all the things you do when you have a toddler. And like, and so like, I feel like I'm very bland and boring, but it's kind of like, it's a nice, like, when you spend so much time away from home throughout the year, like it's nice to have this. So as strange as it seems, like from like late October until March, when we start filming again, I really don't leave home much. Like I go to work every day, and then we're home, and that's kind of like it. And then in March we start filming, and then last year I probably was away from home, maybe like two months total, like 60 days or more, like 60, 70 days away from home, because I, so much time filming. I mean, 30 days alone were spent working on the Trail of UFOs. So, and then we had 2 other projects, we were working on. So I travel a lot. So this kind of time is really nice for me. Yeah.
I'm sure.
And taking care of young ones is awesome, and being there and stuff. So, did you have any influences, I'd say, in that genre, or in this genre, to kind of go into documentaries? I know you said you had your reporting background,
Well, yeah, I mean, like, I think when I was getting into it, I was more aware of Ken Burns than anything, because my parents owned a historical bookstore growing up, and weirdly enough, they got into that by, my mom was like the #1 seller. She sold this guy's work. His name was Bobby Horton. Bobby did the music for Ken Burns docs. So like, and he still does, like he does like songs. He works on historical instruments. So like hammer, dulcimer, and all that kind of stuff. He knows how to play. And so like, I think I grew up watching a lot of Ken Burns, especially like Ken Burns baseball miniseries and all that kind of stuff. And so like, that was where my knowledge of documentaries came from. But like, as far as like I watch everything. I especially when I was younger, I watched everything. I didn't have like one favorite genre or anything. It's funny. I've never cared that much for horror, like for what we make, and the fact that like, I think we kind of exist in the paranormal space, but also kind of in the horror world. Like we're kind of in both of those places these days. It's kind of weird. Yeah. Stanley Kubrick and Alfred Hitchcock and Ray Harryhausen, like those are the guys that I watched when I was a kid. My favorite movie is Casablanca. So there's no way I can be like, well, definitely I watched Casablanca and then I made The Mothman and Point Pleasant. Like it's two completely different things.
I guess if you find a good haunted hotel, you could kind of, do an homage or something like that.
There you go.
Yeah. Okay, we've been in 2 of them lately that one's got a presidential library and the other one just crazy architecture up in Buffalo.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's amazing.
Buffalo, I got to get up to Buffalo because my grandpa actually lived in Buffalo for a little while, and I'm trying to like learn more about his life because he's been dead for like 10 years, but I'm just now getting to the point where I really want to like figure out who he was because his life is so interesting. And he lived in Buffalo for a short period of time.
Very neat. Why was he in Buffalo? What brought him to Buffalo?
See, this is like his life's insane because he grew up Amish. He grew up Amish. His mom died. He was given, him and his sisters and brothers were all split up and given to different members of the family after his mom died. Then his dad remarried, brings them all back together, but he was so pissed off that him and his brother kind of took off, went and did whatever they wanted, ended up becoming chicken thieves, got put in jail, missed the World War II draft because they were in jail. He gets out of jail, moves to Buffalo to drive a truck. While he's in Buffalo, he has a roommate who's in debt to the mob because he's gambling. One day he comes home from driving the truck and his roommate's hanging in the kitchen. And then he's like, I better get out of Dodge. So he hops in his truck and takes off back to Ohio. And that was like his time in Buffalo is apparently spent with this guy who was in debt to the mob. And I just like, there's a lot of missing pieces to my grandpa's life that I'm super curious about right now. Yeah.
Kristie, we got to check and see if those are a couple of those guys that we deal with there at the Lafayette and the Saddler.
Friends in spirit over at the Statler that, or maybe even some of my own family members, you never know.
Yeah. Kristie's got a relationship with a spirit at the Saddler Hotel, that was like supposedly a mob hitter or something like that.
Big guy. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yes, sir.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's a place you got to check out if you're up there, because
I'd love to.
Yeah,
presidential library that was like hidden for years that just popped up. Yep.
Behind the dentist office of all things. Go figure. It was really cool. Yeah. It was on the mezzanine, and they were taking down walls when they were redoing that floor, and they knocked down this wall, and they found this other wall and this beautiful door, and you open up these doors and there's this awesome library room with fireplaces and shelving. Oh yeah, it was awesome. They found pictures of President Kennedy was in there, all different presidents and important people. The whole staff is gorgeous and amazing. And but that room was it was like a hidden treasure, a hidden treasure to find that.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Wow. So, and Trail of UFO, it's available. Your website?
Yeah, it's on. And this one's on Blu-ray or DVD. So Blu-ray, DVD through smalltownmonsters.com, and then it's live on Amazon and Vimeo on demand right now. So it's on pretty much every platform that our stuff is typically on. Now we're signing a distribution deal this week, which there should be like a big announcement in the next week. On the Trail of UFOs is part of it. So On the Trail of UFOs will go wide. Like there should be a very big release across multiple platforms coming for that. But for now, it's on Vimeo, it's on Amazon, and then it'll be in DVD and Blu-ray through smalltownmonsters.com.
That's awesome. Wow, you would do so many really cool things, and you get to go into so many different just fun places, and beautiful places, and experience so many different things on so many different levels, No,
I agree.
Wow, that's amazing. That's really amazing. Now, do you think that you'll take your son with you as he gets older?
He's already gone. He's been a part of that Japanese TV show. He was 3 weeks old. He was sleeping in the hotel back in Point Pleasant while I was out in the woods. So like Tommy's been a part of this pretty much from the beginning. He hasn't been a part of any of the really like crazy shoots, like the East Coast shoot of On the Trail of UFOs is the most insane thing we've ever done. He wasn't there for that, but he was part of the southern portion of that trip. So like he's been kind of around for some of this stuff, and as he gets older, he's already kind of interested in the cameras. Like he likes to take pictures and stuff, and he's kind of getting interested in that. So I think they're actually supposed to be going with us to do the Mark of the Bellwitch shoot, So yeah, I'm hoping he'll be a part of. I'm hoping, especially when he gets a little older, I can take him and put him to work. Because I mean, I grew up working with my parents. Like my parents owned this bookstore, and we were gone all the time doing, book shows every weekend. I grew up traveling, so this is kind of like a natural progression for me. But we were gone every weekend from March to November. So like, and it's similar to how my life is now. And we were doing book shows. And so, as he gets older, I'd like to take him with me. I mean, that's awesome. The dream. We take the whole family, including the dogs. So.
And the dogs. Oh, you have more than one?
Yeah, we have Mona. Mona's our mini schnauzer. She's passed out. I'm surprised she hasn't started snoring yet. We
Good
have
girl.
Mona, and then we have Bubby. Bubby's actually asleep up in Tommy's bed right now. He goes to Bubby's our 90-pound Labradoodle, and him and Tommy are like best buddies. So like Bubby sleeps at the end of his bed every night.
Oh, that's so sweet.
Yeah.
And what's those big dogs? Mike has the big dogs. I have the little dog like yours. Well, you have one each, but yeah. That's amazing.
Dogs for a little bit.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you've had all sorts of sorts of animals.
So
amazing.
A question so we're talking about the kids, and if somebody new that wants to maybe experiment this and getting into film production, can you guys hear me all right? What do you suggest for equipment to start out with?
Oh, like whatever you got. Like,
okay.
Yeah, because I think that's something, especially people that are like really into filmmaking, but have maybe never done it, or they watch too many YouTube vloggers or something. They come under the impression that they have to have like some full filmmaking kit when they're starting out. And we shot Minerva with like handy cams and camcorders, and then like when we got to, Beast of Whitehall was shot on a completely obsolete camcorder called the Sony Nex VG900, which was a Sony Handycam body, but it had an interchangeable lens system. So it looked like a Handycam, but it took lenses, normal lenses. So we used whatever we had. We still use whatever we have. I shot all the recreations in the Mothman of Point Pleasant were shot on my iPhone. And that movie's had more views than any STM production. So yeah, I think whatever you got, and the way things are going right now, like phones are as good as anything. Like they really are. They might not
using their iPhones for movies, and
like
love it.
Yeah, you can do it with anything. It's funny because like what I really got into this past year is this I went and bought an old 8mm camera. That's like my current obsession. It's actually when I went to the office today, we might end up, who knows if like the whole country is going to get locked down or not, but I wanted to bring a camera home so I had something to play with. So like I brought the 8mm home because like that's my current obsession is like this 1970s 8mm camera. It's like, yeah, make whatever you got work.
Yeah.
You're just basically using the good software then, correct? To kind of edit and...
Yeah, but even that is like, I edited Beast of Whitehall on Adobe Premiere Elements. It's like the baby version of Premiere. It's basically made to edit family videos. And that's what I edited Beast of Whitehall on. So I just think, you figure out how to tell the story with whatever you got.
Last weekend we were down, like I said, I was down in Florida, running around the swamps. I've got GoPro footage. I've got cheap knockoff footage that's got better than some of the expensive cameras. And I'm like, I just like to put all this together in a nice little...
Well, it's funny because like we had someone posted on Facebook earlier tonight that they couldn't believe how professional On the Trail of UFOs looked. And how the cinematography is like on another level from other STM productions. And I said to Adrian, I was like, the A camera is our Sony A7S II, which we've had going all the way back to Boggy. And then the B camera is a Sony Handycam. It's just a camcorder. And then there's a $99 night vision camera that's in there a lot. And it's just funny to me. Like it's the story they're responding to, but they, because of the scenery in it, they're connecting it with like the cinematography is unbelievable. And some of the cinematography is really solid in that, but it isn't necessarily the tool. It's how you use it.
Right. In your eye and your team's eye is just, it's awesome. It's just, like I said, there's been a couple of surgeries I've had in the last year or two, and it's like, okay, it's going to be a rerun of A, B, and C, it's, and like I said, and it's just somebody's looking for something, go check your stuff out. So, Chris, do you have any other questions? We're getting down to the end. Do you have any questions of us?
Have you guys seen Bigfoot yet?
I have not.
Still working on that one.
I've had rocks thrown at me. I've had hair. I've had a scream down there with
I heard
Jay and Eric. Yeah,
I heard the scream when you were out there that night. I did.
Yeah, cool. What was it like? What was the scream like?
Blood curdling.
Explain yours.
It was like it was at the end of the night. It was like a third location, and it was, of course, behind me, of all things. And it was like this. At first, you thought it was a woman, almost like a woman being attacked. It was this loud, high-pitched but alarming noise, like this desperation. But then it was like Barbara Streisand. It kept going and going and going, but then it kept going past when even Barbara Streisand could hold a note. And it was like, but then it changed and it became almost like primal, but like holistic. It was that's the part that freaked me out when I realized that 15 seconds went by and this thing was still going strong, and I was like, holy crap, like what was that? And these guys are all jumping through. Oh my god.
I was like, who's got a cigarette? Yep, that was a good one. Just keep sitting here. It'll come out.
It was awesome. It was really cool, but it was the craziest thing. It was, I've never heard anything like it. Yeah.
Hey, stop it.
I'm sorry.
No, not you. No, she's scratching. She does this thing where she scratches. She's like a cat. She'll before she sits down, she has to scratch everything, and then she'll tear holes in the furniture. Sorry.
Oh, great. Well, I mean, if it was me, I'd say, new time for new furniture.
Mine was down on the Chestnut Ridge, and I'm sitting there with Jay, and Ricky Chirby was there, and they were up the hill a little bit. I don't know if you guys came out. It was one of those group nights. And I look at Jay, and I'm like, hey, you got a butt? And he's like, yeah, well, hang on a second. He goes reaching this, and this scream just comes out of nowhere. And it was one of those family, hike outs that night there. Yeah. And just Jay looks at me, I look at him, we're like, what was that? Just right through your chest. I mean, it was just crazy. And then we brought everybody in because, everybody had never been out before, started freaking out. And, did you go out with us for those couple of those hikes at night hikes?
No, the first night I wasn't there, and then the second night I was having like the greatest night of my life out with Sean Forker and Cliff Barrickman and the Ohio Night Stalkers.
Okay, yeah,
night of my life.
No,
we
another show.
Yeah, this the one before that, the one we got snowed and rained out.
Okay, yeah. That was I didn't get in until Saturday morning.
Okay. And then we turned around and I spread everybody out in a grid search pattern to walk down the road to go back to the cars. Mm-hmm. And some young lady looked up and she's like, what's that? And Joe Bayella looked over and here's a track going across the trail. And and it was Parsons, Jay, myself, and Joe and somebody else. And then 16 other people. And then it was just 4 of us. And then something paced us out of the woods from that point on. And I came home and bought a thermal camera after that and it checked my back. So, big old ATN is good for a human-sized target out to 1,000 yards.
Yeah.
And can hear me, reacting to whatever behind me. But
that's awesome.
No, have I seen anything? No, I've been with people that said they've seen stuff, but I don't know. It's the joy of getting out and enjoying nature. That's the most important thing.
Right.
I tell people, like you said, where have you gone? Where have you been? I've been to Vermont and seen some beautiful cliff faces. I've been to top of, some places in the Adirondacks. Been down to Pennsylvania. We've been invited to Jersey to go for Jersey Devil. We've been invited to go to Wisconsin, and do that whole kettle thing. Yeah. So, you go. And then the places we go for ghosts, it's that architecture. That's the fun. It's the pleasure of getting off the couch, but we take solace in what's out there right now, especially in this trying time. So Leah, that was in New York that Kristie had her first encounter with a scream. So that was a
undisclosed location. I'm not allowed to tell anybody.
So we're down at the end.
It's official. So
we appreciate you staying with us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, thank you so
do
much.
like
This was really
Picture on the
interesting.
wall there behind you too. I just, been staring at it for a while and just haven't got a chance to say anything. So
That one?
yeah.
Yeah, Adrian did that actually.
Awesome.
Very
Yeah.
cool. Very
She's an
cool.
artiste.
Oh, that's great. Great minds think alike, right? The two of you. Yes. Well, thank you so much for coming on tonight. This was very interesting and I had a great time talking with you. I learned a lot, that's for sure. You do some great work and I hope everybody out there looks him up. Seth Breedlove, Small Town Monsters and Crepes. You could Google him and find all of his different projects. You won't be disappointed, that's for sure. So definitely give it a shot and check out some of his work. We really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys.
We're in our area. Come on over. Let's get together and let's have some fun and go on an adventure. That'd be great.
For sure.
Awesome.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Yes, everybody be well, stay safe. Thank you all for tuning in. We appreciate you all, and we can't do this without you. So until next time, thank you so much, and be safe and sample on.
Yeah.